Hello, welcome back to 3 Orcs. This is David, and this video we're going to go ahead and take a look at the newest village, Twilight Falls. Twilight Falls is a short distance up the northeast forest road from Nulb on the way to Divers. It's only like 10 miles away, so it's in the campaign area. You know, if you're running your Temple of Elemental Evil campaign as an epic version campaign, more like a sandbox version where Game of Thrones meets Temple of Elemental Evil, you want to have all these other towns, just like the village of Hamlet, to be fully used, so that way the players, if they go in that direction, or you send the players in that direction for whatever quest they're on, or any plot leads, or at other locations in the campaign, this location will be ready just like the village of Hamlet. Every town, NPC, leader, military, everything you need to know, including dialogue, artwork, and a map. Let's take a look at what we've done so far. This time we need to do full screen. This is the main splash page of the project, the website for Dungeon Masters and players alike. At the front splash screen there is an interactive map, and on the interactive map is all the towns that we have finished and have not finished. If you click and put your cursor over it, you'll see that the article for that location pops up. So if we go to like Nulb, for example, it pops up a little description of what the town is like, what that location is about. Then if you click on it again, it'll pull up an article of Nulb. And as you can see, Nulb is done. It's ready for you to run in your D&D campaign for the Temple of Elemental Evil. The original module, the Temple of Elemental Evil, came with Gary Gygax's keyed 4 locations in Nulb with a very simple map. As you can see, the map is expansive and highly detailed. This map is available for free on the website to use in your game. You know, it's a lower resolution version, and you can use it even in your VTT. If you want a higher resolution version of this map, all you have to do is go to my 3 Orcs Patreon. Not only is all the free stuff there too, higher resolution versions of the maps and menus are available. If you scroll down past all the dialogue, descriptions, and characters and locations, like on the right-hand side, it's like a table of contents of all the locations that are fully keyed in the campaign. If you put your cursor over it, you're going to see a pop-up mini-article version of that article that you can briefly glance at. And if you want to look at the full article, you just click on Read Full Article. When I run my campaign, I prepare 20 open tabs in advance for the campaign so I don't waste time at the table looking for something. I just wanted to show you what I did with Nulb. Back to the main campaign website. And we'll scroll back down. Now if I go past this interactive map and scroll to the bottom, on the left hand side is the table of contents, on the right is all the maps. So not only do you just need to use this interactive map to find something in this world, but if you scroll down on the right, the direct maps are listed here. If I scroll to the bottom, you'll see Nulb, Ostwerk, and Penwick, Sheernob. The city of Verbobonc is huge. The Viscounty itself that we're just looking at. And then you have the Eastern Viscounty, which is more detailed. That every square is a mile, because there's a lot of things going on in this campaign. So that we need a more detailed map to run this campaign, because there's so much is going on. Then we have the Wild Coast, and we're looking for more Dungeon Master content creators to expand this campaign world. You can run the whole thing in this area for the Temple of Elemental Evil. You don't just go to that dungeon and it's a dungeon slog where you go room to room killing stuff and looting everything. Then you finally kill the big bad monster at the end of the video game and the game's over. No, this is an epic Dungeons and Dragons campaign. You bring the whole world to life. You got players from different backgrounds, different locations. You have different dungeons. You have different NPCs and organizations like this church or that knighthood, or different countries involved and different modules. I've been doing the Living Greyhawk series. I know those modules from 2000 to 2008 was written for the 594 Common Year and up. I'm running my campaign in 576 Common Year, or 578 is when the Temple of Elemental Evil was supposed to be run. And that means a lot of these things that happen in Living Greyhawk is future events, but I use these key locations and NPCs that still exist in this timeline, so I use it to flush this world out. And even as you saw in Nulb, I had only 4 locations to go by. I expanded it. I don't change lore. I stick with canon from the Greyhawk box set and some Living Greyhawk stuff. The only thing I do is expand from 4 locations to 50 locations. That's not world changing, that's expanding for your campaign use. And as a Dungeon Master, you don't have to use all those locations, but hey, they're there in case you need it, which is awesome. It may give you some good ideas. You never know what your players are going to do. Alright, let's go back to the map and click on Twilight Falls. Where's Twilight Falls? Let's go down to Nulb. Zoom in. There's Nulb. I need to take off that little building for the Temple of Elemental Evil. This shouldn't be there, that way the players won't see it. If you click on this cursor on the right, this little menu, you'll see the DM only locations pop up. See that? All these dungeons pop up. Some are available, some are not. If you go up the forest road, going northeast into the gnarly forest, the first village you come across is Twilight Falls, almost in the middle of gnarly. You see that orange line there? That's the border of the county of Verbobonc. If you go past that line, you start running into the 4 elven clans. They still feel they're beholden to Queen Yolanda of the Kingdom of Selene. Celene. My text-to-speech doesn't always spell that correctly. All right, so let's click on Twilight Falls. Another way to get to it is in the World Codex, the table of contents. You click on Verbobonc Atlas, go down the Verbobonc Viscounty, and there it is right there, Twilight Falls. Taymouth got added today, by the way, and we have some other Dungeon Masters working on those articles. But the front screen is done. We need to add all the different locations in town. Twilight Falls has 4 locations done so far. This is a quick review of where we're at in the campaign, the project. And I just wanted to show you as an update what we've done so far. And so this is Twilight Falls of what we've created. I wish I could zoom in, but... Is that better? Hopefully you can see everything. Okay, so Twilight Falls, it's many falls, as you can see. This is an ancient site that's been here for a long time. Let's get past this introduction, which is deep within the gnarly forest, nestled upon the forest road between the Viscounty of Verbobonc and Divers, lies this remote village of Twilight Falls. A lot of these names didn't come with the original box of World of Greyhawk. So a lot of these towns and roads are named in Living Greyhawk. Now, as a Dungeon Master running Greyhawk, you got to make it your own. They purposely left a lot of the world vague. You got the capital cities, some major roads, lakes, geographical areas. Then as a Dungeon Master, you're supposed to expand this. And also what the expectation back in the day was the modules, like the Village of Greyhawk. Modules expanded and detailed local areas to bring the world to life. As a Dungeon Master, you could do that too yourself, but not everybody has the imagination, competence, or the time to do something like that. It's easier to use a module. Now, I know a lot of Dungeon Masters like to brag that they don't need modules, and that's great. But, you know, extra material is great to have. Twilight Falls is where civilization meets the untamed wilderness. The village thrives under the watchful eyes of the Druidic guardians, loose-knit community, independent foresters, a minor trading post for travelers between Divers and Verbobonc. It remains a place of mystery, deeply entwined in ancient and mystical forces. So this is the center of merchant road traffic, from Divers to Nolb, Hamlet, Viscounty of Verbobonc to the Wild Coast. A 3-way destination for merchants. You know, I know there's slavers in the Wild Coast, but not just slaves are traded in the Wild Coast, but other things too. It is a seaport, right? Like Narwhal, and also Divers. So legitimate trade over the centuries have traveled these roads, and Twilight Falls is in a prime position to support that trade. Historically, merchants usually don't travel more than 10 miles a day because that's how fast wagons go. Usually there's a small town or a community every 10 miles. So merchant caravans can stop there for the night. It's very dangerous for a caravan to stop in the wilds, and it could be raided by monsters or bandits at any time. A lot of merchants don't want to take the risk, so these communities expanded every 10 miles to support that. Now, the origins of Twilight Falls trace back a millennia. It was also known as Ilara Ethrakon. I can't pronounce that. Well, anyway, it stands for Mist Home of the Earth Keepers. The settlement of elven wizards is now called Selene. The mages study geomancy, creating a conduit called the Fharlanghn, or soul trees, which channels raw magic energy into their high magic. This elven experiment led to the formation of several enchanted groves across the region, but their reach ultimately drew attention of the Whispered One, Vecna. This article was originally created for Living Greyhawk, but this version of Twilight Falls was written by one of our Patreon members, Fharlanghn, and he's a great resource to our group, and he's in our Discord every day with us, discussing this campaign all the time, every day, all day long, and he helps out a lot. And he wrote most of this and submits his articles to me for the website. He's the author of Twilight Falls for this campaign. The Eurfland history was entwined with his by Sam Weiss for the Journal and Dragon or Dungeon magazine, and he's been around for decades. He's another Greyhawk veteran expert, and so he helped me write the history of Verbobonc recently. That was my last video, and so we entwined that ancient history with this ancient history, so make sure it all meshed well together. Now, and that includes Vecna. So, during the war against Vecna's forces, Ilara Erakon was besieged and eventually abandoned. The elves transported many of the Cronaleth in Selene, but some trees remained, protected by the children of the Earth Keepers. I didn't write this. Sam Weiss wrote the Euroflan stuff, and Fharlanghn wrote the Twilight Falls stuff. The Dryads, bound to the surviving groves, remained dormant for centuries until the era of the Great Migrations, when the Uridin invaders, guided by Selos necromancers, swept through the region. Now, in desperate bid for survival, elven geomasters attempted a powerful ritual to annihilate the invaders, but the spell misfired, devastating both attackers and defenders. The few remaining elves, along with the twin dryads, Ruthal and Balavain, worked to mend the land's magic, renaming the settlement Nemos, Companion Oaks in Eternal Shadow. The village was abandoned and reclaimed by the forest. But to ancient history. Recent history is more pertinent to the village because a lot of people that live there know this. Only scholars would know the ancient history. So some 3 centuries ago, so that would be 200 Common Year? A family of human settlers chose to make their home at the pools of the falls. As you can see from the image earlier, there's a pool right below the falls. They were kindly and responsible woodfolk who were respectful of the elves, who frequently came to gaze upon the falls and the twins of the 2 great oaks, by the way. From those elves, they learned a little of the area, though due to language barriers, they came to call the site Twilight Falls, rather than Shadow Falls. Slowly, other woodsfolk joined them, and by the time soldiers of the nascent realm of Thirandi arrived at the end of the 3rd century, and informed them that they owed their fealty to Shandel, the capital of Thirandi. There was a thriving thorp of about 60 souls here. A century later, paying their meager taxes to the Viscounty of Verbobonc, a village of 200 lived in the settlement by the 500 Common Year. 380 people dwelt in the growing settlement by 576 Common Year, which is current campaign date. It has grown further to 522. So to continue, by the early 500s Common Year, Human Woodsmen of the Gnarly, so that's a linkable title. So that's an organization article. And basically, Woodsmen of the Gnarly Forest, I figured, needed their own article about the typical woodsman that lived in the typical human woodsman that lived in the gnarly forest, and half-elves. As you can see, there's quite a bit of information about them. This organization of humans is in many villages in the gnarly forest, human-dominated. And also, the next article is linkable with the Gnarly Rangers, everything you need to know about them. Absolutely, including artwork and a lot of stuff you need to know. And then another article about the Druids of the Gnarly, same thing. Everything you need to know is on these links. We discovered the site and began settling here. Drawn by the abundant resources and natural magic, the village renamed Twilight Falls grew into a small but stable community. Throughout the 60s and 70s, governance shifted between 2 contrasting leaders. Mistress Anda Dove, who sought to make Twilight Falls an artistic haven, and Roblith Tyne, a lumber baron eager to exploit the region for profit. Their struggle defined the political landscape and the village leading up to 576 Common Year. So that's everything you need to know. This is all you need to know to roleplay the campaign. On the right-hand side, I did create a chart for you, so for another quick reference. Now let's cover the recent history of Twilight Falls. Some 3 centuries ago, a family of human settlers chose to make their home at the pools of the falls. They were responsible for... Skip all that. Now that we're done with history, let's move on to geography and layout. So Twilight Falls is built upon the banks of this cascading waterfall from which derives its name. The falls serve as both a natural defense and a source of fresh water. A sturdy wooden bridge spans the forest road, connecting the village's 2 halves. I have not created a map for this location yet. There is a map from Living Greyhawk, but it's just roughly hand-drawn. And as you know, as 3 orcs, I always had to create this elaborate map to all my villages. It just takes time. So this town is currently in progress. This is what we're working on, what we've done so far. I'm trying to finish the map for the Lizardman village. I'm almost done. I finish that tonight. Then I'll move on to Twilight Falls. The key locations in Twilight Falls include the Silverbow Inn, Market Square, and the Circle of the Old Faith. I wrote that article already, so I can label that on the map. The next section is culture and society. The people of Twilight Falls are fiercely independent, much like the woodsmen of the Gnarly. They govern themselves through an elected mayor who serves a full 5-year term and is advised in an informal council of elders. Until recently, the system worked well, but tensions between the expansionists and the conservatists have grown. Hospitality is a valued virtue, but so is caution. Outsiders are welcomed but watched. A barter economy thrives, with coin holding little value compared to trade goods and services. So that's a way to roleplay trade in this game. If you have players coming here to expect economy of their gold to buy almost anything, they're going to find it's a little bit different, that these people value more objects versus any kind of coin they carry. Governance here, up until the 5th century, local folk operated as a commune, with all adults taking a simple vote on matters affecting the entire village. An informal council of elders took responsibility for the enacting of their will. The same council would be responsible for collecting taxes, which in turn would be delivered to the officers of the Viscount in the form of the mounted borderers. As the number of villagers grew, the method of governance became unwieldy and at length, and so it decided that a mayor would be elected every 5 years. The mayor, in turn, would be advised by the same informal council, and additional officers of the village would be appointed as needed. The mayor would be responsible for the defense of the town and the collecting taxes and upkeep. The current mayor is Robleth Tyne. For most of the existence of the modern settlement, most of the villagers were congregates of the Old Faith, which is common in Verbobonc. They relied upon the local druid for healing and spiritual advice. But in 359 Common Year, a group of monks dedicated to Alitur, an Oregon god of ethics and morality, built a monastery on the banks of the Emridge Run, a handful of miles to the south, along a trail connecting to the Verge Road. They sought to do good works and influence the community, but the monks abandoned the site by the turn of the 6th century. So that would be ruins, probably. In 512 Common Year, the shrine of Fharlanghn had constructed in the village and was later expanded into a larger chapel, then again into a fully fledged temple. So in the 540s, it was joined by a small church of Myris, founded by a colony of artists and poets in the settlement. They in turn would be more recently be joined by the chapels dedicated to Fultus, Zilchus, and Blared. He's the god of, smithy? God of metal, mines, and smiths. All the gods are created for this website. Look at the link and you can find out all about it real quick. This is very handy when you're role-playing. So if you're role-playing this town and you got this in front of you as you're at the table and you forgot what that god's all about, any kind of information about that god, it's instantly accessible here without even having to click on it. You just kind of scroll through it, look for the dogma worshippers, what they wear, temples and rituals, or you can click on the full article and open it up in another tab. Okay, so these days the followers of the Old Faith are still the majority here, just like in Hamlet, but only by virtue of the smaller members of the Fharlanghn, Jilchus, Belred, Fultus, and Myris. Together, the worshippers of the new gods outstrip the congregation of the Old Faith 2-1. Now, this is a whole article that discusses all of the clans. So if you need to look up a certain clan, you just find it here. Until recently, rebuffed any correspondence with Twilight Falls. Basically, the elves have been ignoring them. Many believe that this is due to the rampant deforestation of the Ipwood trees in the Gnarly and increasing urbanization of the Great Forest. Once a place of elven antiquity and beauty, the elves now view Twilight Falls as a blight on the land and a cyst that must be excised. Attempts by village leaders to establish trade agreements or mutual defense pacts with the elves have been largely ignored. A cold formality. Only a few half-elves and intermediaries with personal ties to the elves have managed to maintain any kind of fragile lines of communication. The village's expansion and use of the surrounding forest resources have created tension and could soon erupt in outright hostility if not carefully managed. The Gnarly Rangers, who have a foot in both the human and the elven world, work to temper conflicts when possible, but even they acknowledge the growing resentment from the elves. If the logging and mining industries continue unchecked, the elves may take action to halt what they see as an affront to their homeland. Now, this is the key story plot for one or two of the Living Greyhawk modules that was run back in the day. And I've included a lot of that lore here in case you wanted to run that. And I'll be adding more of those quests to the campaign website. So and this is a good example right here, the adventuring opportunities here. Hunting the Blackthorn Orcs, a dangerous tribe threatening this region. They're from the eastern part of the Gnarly Forest. Tracking temple cultist, uncovering a hidden cell of the Elder Elemental God's followers. There's a bunch of articles about the Elder Elemental God. I have an article for the god and also for the cult of the Elemental God. There's a couple different articles to help you run the campaign. Elven diplomacy, earning the trust of the Gnarly Elves to strengthen their ties. Recovering a lost relic, seeking an ancient artifact said to be hidden behind the falls. I actually wrote an article for that. So below is the demographics, the natural resources, and the article locations I've written for this village so far. If I scroll back up to the top on the right is a picture of Twilight Falls, a quote for the place, notable figures like Rhiannon Moonshadow. She owns the Silverbow Inn. She's a retired ranger. Marley Wildbriar tends the Circle of the Old Faith. Mistress Dove, former mayor. Jessica Rod, commander of the Mounted Borderers of the Falls Keep. The Mounted Borderers have a keep here in this town. So that's how important this location is to the Viscounty of Verbobonc. Then we have a deceased lumber baron. If we continue down, there's a table of contents. Let's go to Falls Keep first. Falls Keep is a critical outpost of the Mounted Borderers. And as you can see, I wrote a full description of the place and its history and purpose, and even some artwork with the leadership in the garrison there. And not only that, but all of the political and military challenges they face, ongoing military threats, their relationships with the Gnarly Rangers, the Druids, and the Mounted Borderers of Verbobonc. On the right-hand side, I added a stat block for Jessica. I scroll to the bottom, the image of Falls Keep. It's just a simple timber log fort, which is enough to protect Falls Keep. Now, we had a lot of discussion on the Three Orcs Discord channel, and I'm under the opinion that the Mounted Borderers are much less effective in the Gnarly Forest than the Gnarly Rangers would be, because the Mounted Borderers are riding around on their horses. If you watched any Robin Hood movies or TV shows, Robin Hood and his men are always taking advantage of the barons or the sheriff's men on horseback because of the trees. They hide in the trees, they climb up in the trees, they're setting traps, and it's very easy to ambush and take advantage of anybody on horseback. So the Mounted Borderers would be much less effective in the forest. And so they pretty much stick to the merchant roads. And their duties also includes to keep the merchant roads safe, running from Twilight Falls to Nulb to the village of Hamlet. And as you know from any movie you ever watched, that it's easy to ambush a merchant caravan in a forest road. So that'd be very difficult to protect a merchant caravan in the forest, even with the Mounted Borderers of 10. Not all can ride out and do these things. And somebody's got to be left behind to guard the keep. So they're in a very difficult situation here. And it even says, Viscount Wilfric ordered the Mounted Borderers back from the Cron Hills, from patrolling the hills, to protect the gnomes and any kind of merchant traffic from that direction. And so the manpower has been seriously depleted in the region, including this location, because it only left 10 men here. Now, another thing I wrote for this location is Jessica Roll. Jessica Roll is the commander, and she has a backstory, history, personality, traits, background, role, responsibilities, goals, motivations, and relationships too. Everything you need to know about this main character at this location. The players the players will most likely be engaged with her for a lot of different reasons in the campaign. They might go up to the keep and want to talk to her because of the bandits they captured on the road, or have questions about bandit activity or cultist activity. They most likely might get in their heads that, yeah, go talk to the commander at the fort and see what they know. And so that's why this information is important, so you can roleplay that. Everything you need to know about her, including quotes to help bring her to life, to help you roleplay her. Back to the main article, quick review of the project. We got 4 locations done. Falls Keep, Lodge of the Twin Oaks, as you can see on the right-hand side, the table of contents. The Temple of the Longstrider, which is the Fharlanghn temple church in this region, and the Circle of the Old Faith. Those are done with NPCs. The other two articles below that are articles I created a long time ago on my private site. I'm not sure if I'm going to convert them over or not, because this is pretty much Fharlangh's write-up of this location. I noticed he didn't have these locations in his write-up, and his write-up has a lot of locations listed. So I'm just going to have to go through it. Now, speaking of writing this stuff up and getting help for this project, this project is huge. There's a lot of dungeon masters running their campaigns in different areas of the world. Some start at the village of Hamlet, the old way, the simple way. And then you got others running from Fharlanghn, from Valuna, from Divers. I got some DMs starting their campaigns off in the Wild Coast and making their way towards the village of Hamlet. You can have gnomes from the Greenway Valley or elves from Selene. So there's a lot of variety of locations you can run your campaign in. Also, there's a lot of quests going on and locations in this campaign world. And so we're constantly creating these locations, write articles for these towns and the NPCs there and the organizations and the shops and stuff like that. I constantly need maps for these locations and artwork, and also descriptive articles written up for these locations. And so a lot of the Dungeon Masters that joined the Three Orcs website, a lot of Dungeon Masters that joined the Three Orcs Discord channel were talking about their campaigns and what's needed for the campaign world. And I'm always requesting and asking if they could help out, what they got on, Verbobonc, Tolvar, or whatever. There's a Dungeon Master right now creating a location for Reinhurst. He's still working on that for the last 6 months. He's also doing Woodstock. Somebody requested I do Littleborough. I did 4 locations. I know I could do more. I didn't make a map, but that's all he needed so far. The campaign generally sticks to the east side of the Vivic County. I'm currently working on a village called Zaslator, and that's located right here. So it's a place for players to go to as they travel along, through the Fens of Tor for the different Living Greyhawk modules we're running.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It's best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Okay, so that was a quick update of Twilight Falls. You're welcome to join us on our Patreon. The Patreon supports the project. A lot of the free stuff is there too. Members get higher resolution maps and artwork. Also join us on the Three Orcs Discord to help on this campaign. I hope you like what we did with Twilight Falls so far. I didn't go over all the locations, but I didn't know if, this was a quick review of our project update. I hope your players have as much fun as my players did in running the Temple of the Elemental Evil campaign. May your dice ever roll true.